global economic shifts and new definitions of growth, clarity has never been more critical. Our opening keynote sets the context for the conversations that will follow over the course of the next few days. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sachin Jain, Regional CEO, World Gold Council India, as he shares a strategic perspective on the shifts shaping India's gold and jewelry landscape, looking at market momentum, consumer insight, and what is redefining sustainable growth for the industry. Over to you, Sachin. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and giving me this opportunity. First and foremost, Navalji, a big thanks to you. Rajivji, a big thanks to you for not just setting this amazing platform that I think all of us in the industry are truly proud of, but this is really when we say up to our jewelry, up to gold, up to diamonds, up to color stones. So heartiest congratulations on what you put together. It's really beautiful. It's really, heartwarming when you walk in the lines and you see these magnificence of our product. That is true sense why we all are here. The inauguration set out a lot of tones in terms of what you're trying to build up. I think we could be a little more cozy crowd sitting together. But I wanted to really emphasize on a few things. One, of course, the details about what is the future of gold and diamonds and everything is, of course, going to get articulated. But I think it's also important to reflect on where we are as India. And it's critical for us to know the position of India today. And I think that can be sort of translated in a few Ds. They call it the famous 3Ds, 5Ds, 7Ds. But I think the few in a very crisp format are that the first D, that's our strength, is our democracy. The fact is that we are the biggest democracy. In our country, power transits from A to B without a problem, and that is a true strength of our nation. The second D is our demography. We are the youngest nation. Our median age is 29. Median age of China is 39 and a half. Median age of America is 49 and a half, 10 years more. Japan has crossed 62. So if you look at what's going to happen in the world in the next 10 years, it is us. And it is our nation and the youth and how we're going to build the future. The third D is about diversity. The diversity about our nation. And in this platform in particular, when you walk down the aisles, you see such a diverse range of jewelry representing cultures. And hence, I always think that diversity is our strength. Though it could be a pain for a marketer who wants to market in India, but it is our strength. And hence, we are not a melting pot. We're not a khichdi. We are a thali, Rajasthani thali served with every meal, which has the essence of a dal and a mithai and a roti. So, that's what we are. I think the other element of our strength is our diaspora. And how many Indians, about 35 million Indians, are leading global world in nations, in technology, in leadership, in doing loads of stuff. And I think that is a very important strength of India because they always will be and always will be our ambassadors to the future. And the last important element of the 5D is the digitized India. And you might have heard just in the last month, 24 lakh crores of UPI payment. It's magnificent. We're leading the race, or that is what India is going to bring to the world. And, earlier it was, do we as India have a table on the G7 or G20? Now we decide the table. So a lot of things are changing from what India was to what India is. So I think to particularly the youngsters who are working and trying to build the future in our industry, I can only tell you, this is perhaps the best time. Not many of us have seen it, and we know it's the last leg, but this is the best time for what India could be. From an infrastructure point of view, in the morning I came from Delhi to Jaipur, which used to perhaps take 7-8 hours before, takes a few hours now. Last 9 years we've seen 92 new airports in this country. We've seen 87 new Vande Bharats in this country. So, what I'm really trying to reflect is that this is really the great time for India and our nation. And when I move to gold, it's very well connected because the gold world, as we look into the forward, the first question everybody's been asking, and I'm sure everybody's asking from people from our businesses, but also to me, that boss, ye price ko kya ho raha hai? What is happening? There's a fire that's happening in the last 18 months. And the reality is true. Last 18 months, we've seen 89 all-time peaks in gold price. 89. It's amazing. It's the all-time highs that we see getting beaten day by day. Every projection that any analyst makes just gets beaten in a matter of weeks. We overcross it. And why is that happening? And will it stay for long term or not? And I think it's important to understand that because people have asked me that is it like 2012 where the crash will happen from $1,900 to $1,100 per ounce? Will it be like that or not? And I think the key is that there's a structural difference in why this rally is happening. We can debate about geopolitics, which is true. So wars are happening, trade issues are happening, all of those things are happening, but they're not the main reasons why the gold rally is happening. The main fundamental reason of the gold rally is the increasing debt of the US economy. And if you track those numbers, and I encourage you to read a little bit about it, the debt of that nation is going like this. And hence the confidence on the currency is dropping, and hence global reserves are moving to gold. So we were just talking about that, where 78% of global reserves, which countries hold. So it is what, let's say, an RBI will hold to say, okay, for a rainy day, what do we need to hold on to? About 78% of that used to be in US dollar, and today, in 18 months, that's down to 52%, and it's going in that same direction. All of that capital is getting parked into gold. So what is happening to gold is not short term. What is happening to gold will be perhaps in the same direction for sure. Will it be the same growth that we witnessed 2025? Perhaps yes, perhaps not. But the reality is that in this current world that we're living in, of geopolitics, of marginalized economies and all of that, I think the one hedge and the one sort of pillar that has been around for not just last 1.5 years, but for hundreds of years in the past has been gold. And this, my friends, I think will continue. And what's also changed is 30 years back, the main consumption of gold was jewelry. Central banks were net sellers of gold. Today, the consumption of gold is very well diversified, both sectorally and both geographically. So from a geography point of view, the emerging markets of India, China, parts of Middle East, we now consume 74% of the gold, which is massive, which was not there 30 years back. From a sectoral perspective, earlier, which was only just for jewelry, today 40% of gold is used for investment demand. About 33% is used for jewelry. About 7% is used for technological products. So all your phones will have some bit of gold and we can communicate better. And about 20% is used for central bank buying. So it's a very diversified view. And just one figure I would like to bring in globally, and then I talk about India. The investment demand this year, 2025, for the first time will cross 6 trillion US dollars. And if I were to translate that into INR, in our currency, this is 17 lakh 80,000 crore rupees of gold getting traded every day. So 17 lakh 80,000 crores of gold getting moved from A organization to B, A individual to B in the world on a daily basis. And that's made gold as by far the most liquid asset on planet Earth. And because of that, the investment markets are completely now focused on gold. And hence, all that I can really reassure everybody is, I don't see this one-way direction of gold moving anywhere in the current world that we live in. I mean, there could be scenarios. You could say that if tomorrow the leadership of Russia, leadership of China and America, they fall in love with each other, everything is fine, Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump become best friends. Yes, if that happens, perhaps the gold will drop. But the possibility of that happening is very, very middle. So I think that's one of the views. Now, when you look at India and what we see as the growth of our nation, the growth of where our business is going, there are few elements based on consumer research that I'd like to share. A lot of times people say that because of rising gold price, is it a concern for our industry or is it an opportunity? And I'd love for you to dwell on your own businesses. Have you done higher value? Have you made more margins? And I think that's the crux, because in all our consumer surveys, the consumer is currently obsessed with gold. They're obsessed to invest in gold. When they were coming, we also done an interesting survey of the wedding budget that gets into jewelry and what part of that gets into gold. So for example, like typically about 30 to 35% of the budget that a family has gets invested in jewelry. In the current context, because of gold, that 30% is hovering between 40 to 45. But within that 35 to 45, the share of gold is an all-time high, because when you're investing and you want to give to a daughter or a young couple, there is an interest to give something that grows in value and stays for long term. And at times I meet a lot of financial investors, and the guys, they make such a complication of life in terms of alternate investments, returns, this and that. And the reality is the investor, individual, is a very simple person. He says, "Bhai, jahan paisa bhar sakta hai, wahan lagana chahiye." And today gold has turned out to be that important hedge where the values are going up. So the consumption is ready to grow. What is also important, and some of the triggers, we hear about Because the price is up, should we move from 22 carat to 18 carat? Should we move from 18 to 14 carat, 14 to 9 carat? And I'll just want to put forward to the industry, very importantly, that this downward spiral is created by us as an industry. We are talking about that let's go and give something cheaper to the consumer and all of those things, which is absolutely not the truth. The consumer has almost no interest in buying a 9 carat product because they have the opportunity to buy, imitation jewelry if they want to buy something like that. So I think the important assurance is that when you drop caratage and that links to your brand and your brand is standing there for 100 years, 50 years or whatever your legacy is, be very careful, because when you drop something on purity, it impacts your own existence and your own brand. Consumer has no interest in it. You as a brand want to push it, then be very careful. And I'm sure there's a market that will emerge. And these are long-term changes. It won't happen overnight. Will a 9 carat sell in this country? 100% yes. But it will take 10 years, 20 years, or a slow growth that might emerge to be an interesting segment of the consumer. So for me, number one learning is, with what's happening with consumers, be very careful when you're offering something that is a drop caratage, because consumers' interest is in purity, is in holding value of the product, and they're buying something precious. And connected to that, we also, and you'll see from World Gold Council, as we get into 2026, one of the big push that we're going to make is into premiumization, which really means that a consumer's aspiration to buy gold, we're going to be working on that. You might have noticed, and might have or might not have, so there are some leading designers in India who do apparel. People like Manish Malhotra, Sabyasachi, Tarun Tilani and others. And what we did was we got all of these guys together to figure out that last time, when they create these lehengas which are running to lakhs and lakhs of rupees, and when was it last that they put gold? And it was, a lot of it was color stone, and they have a lot of interest. You'll see this time, a lot of them are focusing on pure gold collections or gold amplified collections. So I foresee that coming back. Because of the value of gold, with value of gold that has gone up, there is an assertion by a consumer to say, if I'm wearing something premium or something that holds, something that's solid, is gold. So I think while you're doing your own creations, and even for the retailers who are here, look at collections which are well balanced, but the high end is here to grow. The high end, and when you walk down the aisles of this beautiful exhibition, you'll see a lot of opportunities that will happen. So that's the other one. The third thing that we tried in August was a 24 carat jewelry that we tried to introduce. And the intent was that, one is, of course, there's some phenomenal technology available globally where 24 carat is not as soft. And we wanted to check whether the consumer will be interested to buy, again, pure something, as perhaps light or whatever, but is there pure jewelry that is available? We introduced it in about 350 stores in the country. And as we did the analysis and the year is about to close, those 350 stores have reported that the 24 carat jewelry, compared to consumers who are coming to buy, let's say, just a coin or a bar or investment, and also younger consumers, that sector has done exceptionally well. So again, something to consider. We will be scientifically evaluating it. Our campaigns will be run around it, and that could be one part of the future. Also, one of the elements that we've done is what we set out is something called the Project Highway. And why a highway? Few days back, it was Dhanteras that we saw. And if you were in Bombay City, the Dhanteras Times of India, which is typically about 30 pages, that day is about 75 pages of advertising from gold industry to the consumer. And everybody is almost communicating gold and imagery of gold in a manner that is slightly old, slightly with offers, and we think that the young consumer will start, will fall in love with gold. So what we're doing is we've launched a campaign called The Moment is Gold. It is reflecting about simple moments of life, but very important jewelry pieces. And this will be open to the industry to use, with their logos, with your celebration. And the intent is, how can you modernize this conversation on gold with your consumer? So that's the campaign. We're introducing about 17 technologies for the industry to be utilized in your own stores, that you can take it up and bring forward and work with them, make your stores a bit of more fun. We're launching the first national level training program for all sales ambassadors. It's going to be on an app. You can log in, you can learn about gold, you can put your team members through that process. And the intent is that when a consumer comes in, we're not just giving a discount on the calculator. We're talking about our category. We're proud about what we're doing, and that'll be the intent. So that's an all India thing that we'll welcome you in the coming months to be a part of and take that forward. And we're doing loads of other stuff around researching the consumer, sectoral representations, and so on and so forth. The biggest thing that as World Gold Council's thinking has done is to launch the first self-regulatory organization in India called IAGES. That's the India Association for Gold Excellence and Standards. It's a body which is established to diminish or narrow the gap of trust between the consumer and our product and our business and the government. And the team of IAGES is here, and I'd love for you guys to interact with them. It's an initiative that we believe, if run well, will change the perception of consumers or our industry. So these are a few of the things that we're doing. But lastly, I'll tell about one of the projects that we're working with the government on. And again, importantly, that will also be a part of how gold consumption will happen in 2026 and beyond. So we've been working with the insurance sector and the provident fund sector. Today, the provident fund companies and insurance companies are not allowed by law to invest in gold. You might have noticed about 10 days ago, the provident fund companies have opened the investment of gold from 0 to about 5%. And that 5% actually translates to about 50 tons of gold. So that is opening up. The insurance sector will be opening up. So there'll be new consumption sort of pillars of consumption of gold that are coming in. But our very important project that we're working with the government is a project called Swarnim Udan 2047. And I'll give you a background. Every time you hear a minister or any important person talking about the future of our nation, there is a mention of the Viksit Bharat 2047, which is a very important destination laid out by our Prime Minister, that India will become move from a developing country to a developed country. We're talking about a $5 trillion becoming $30 trillion. So we went back to Niti Aayog and we went back to PMO to saying, what's the role of the jewelry industry? And you'll be very surprised that there was no articulation of what is the role of the gems and jewelry industry in this $30 trillion of growth. So we were encouraged by the PMO and the PM himself to saying, why don't you go and create something that's relevant for the industry? So we got about 17 futurists on one side. So the futurists were people who were defining where the world is going. People like CEO of Google, Apple, and all those people who were thinking where the world is heading. We got one representation from every secretary of the government, so Ministry of Commerce, Finance, Consumer Affairs, RBI, SEBI, all of that. And we worked with the industry alongside to clear a roadmap of what the industry will be in 2047. If we will be $30 trillion or less or more, what is our role? And a clear roadmap that what we will be ready by 2040, 2035, 2030, and what we need to start doing today. And you will soon see a whole blueprint of what the industry can go behind. But few important elements, I'll just share on 4 of them actually, that are important, relevant for all of us. First and foremost is that if the right triggers are pressed, and we are working with the PMO and the Ministry of Mining around it, with the right triggers are pressed, which I'm 100% sure that they will be, in the next 7 to 10 years, 30% of the gold that we consume will come from our own gold, mine in India. So that's the starting of something very new. And hence that will open up a very interesting market. Secondly, India, as much we are a bigger market, we are simply price takers of London market that gets announced. So we are not a price maker. We take the price which other countries are making and we accept it. And RBI has agreed to work on a whole regulation and the involvement of banks more deeper in the gold sector, where in the next 4 to 5 years, we are either influencing it or being relevant in the price making of gold. And if we are the largest consumers, this is our right. We need to make it happen, which is currently not the case. The third is, how do we make an India from a simply importer of gold to a net exporter or a jeweler to the world? It's beautifully happened in gemstone, in diamonds, and now the time is for gold. And with that, we're setting up the first global gold innovation center outside of Mumbai, in Navi Mumbai, where Maharashtra government is setting up 100 acres in innovation park. Google is on. There are a lot of pharmaceutical companies that are on. Apple is setting the center. And they've invited us to set up the first gold innovation center in the world in Bombay. And through you, sir, I love to work with you to saying how the industry can benefit from it. And as an outcome of that, there's also an intent of establishing various manufacturing parks and how we can up our game in manufacturing of gold. And I really think that in this whole trade conversation that between India, China, trade, our wars and all of that, I think we could eventually be, at least in our sector, be the biggest beneficiary. Because currently the global gold jewelry that's getting consumed is being manufactured in China and it's going. And with their tariffs where they are, and with the openness about Indians, and I think it's just entrepreneurial spirit that we will bring in to up this game. So these are the few things. And lastly, there's another one that we've presented to the government, and there's been actually very surprising response that we got is around tourism and the temple trusts. So we did approach some of the temple trusts, and we all have been hearing that इस मंदिर में पता नहीं कितने तहखाने में कितना गोल्ड दफन है या जमा है or whatever. There's a whole articulation, but you'll be surprised how professionally they run, how they run with law, and they're open to come out in the open. And we've given a blueprint where we want about 8 important temples in India to have a gold museum outside the temple, where their gold can be displayed, where we can curate a way a nice museum is done. Like, for example, at the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, if you go there now, you travel all the way to Ayodhya, you can do the darshan about 2 hours, but there's not much to do around. And gold has such an important part of a social fabric that if we celebrate it, it is going to do well. So we're doing these temples, and the intent is how we up our game in the gold tourism of the world. And lastly, that is of course with the temples, and we're also creating some physicality. So we're creating a concept called All is Gold, and you see these centers created in the most important shopping malls where everything is gold. Things that you've not imagined are in gold. Sound in gold. Sound getting transmitted in gold. The gold's role in satellites will be presented there. And that's how we will connect with the new age consumer around what gold is and how gold can get inspired. So I think these are few things that are happening in our lives as World Gold Council. I give an open invitation to the industry to please work with us. We want to be, and we are only established to be the catalysts of our industry, how we can grow more with Indians. In the morning, there was a discussion that Rajesh talked about the possibility in India, and I really believe it. For every business that I see out there, if we don't grow 5 times in the next 10 years, we haven't set up a good target. That is the opportunity in our market. And similarly, you'd see the same thing happening, as how we can be exporters to the world. I was in China some time back. I met, and we did a lot of business while I was with De Beers. We did a lot of business with a company called CTS, Chow Tai Sang. And when I met their chairman, Mr. Wong Lu, he said, Sachin, I'm a small retailer, only 4,800 stores. And he's number 7 in that market. 4,800 stores, somebody who owns those many stores, is the 7th largest retailer in the world. I mean, and that was their time. 2005 to 2015 was the time of China. Now is our time as India. And I think all that you do, you have to do with conviction, transparency, trust, all these elements, but be open in your mind to welcome new ideas. I think the only thing that I wish that we erase or we reduce in our industry will be the conviction of saying what has worked in the past is what's going to work in the future. Because what's worked in the past, my friends, will not work in the future, and we need to change. We need to be open, whether it's technology, new ideas, new designs. You might not be 100% convinced, but you got to try a lot of things, and I encourage that we do that. This is really our time. We won't get wrong. How much wrong will we get? But the point is, we need to try. In China, and I'll encourage all of you to please get on your phones and look at a brand called, Ankesh, what is the exact pronunciation of that brand? So I always get confused. It's a brand called Laupau, Laupau. I mean, Ankesh, my colleague, will share that with you. Just think about it. A brand that was a historical brand in China. 7 years back, just before COVID, the young cousins and brothers and sisters got together thinking that let's modernize this brand. And I've just told you, the 7th largest retailer in China is 4,200 doors. This is a brand with 35 stores. 35 stores in China. Now they have in Hong Kong. The recent valuation that they had was for $1.2 billion. Because what have they done? They've positioned pure gold jewelry in a Hermes form, like top of the line, super luxury. Just 35 stores, valuations unbelievable. And I think we need to create those models in India. Maybe not exactly, but there's a lot of inspiration there. At times I always think that between all the chain players like Malabar and Joy and Kalyan, we are always focused on a middle to upper customer. But there's a huge opportunity of the low end of the consumer. They are ready to consume brands. They're ready to be offered modern retail. So I think map out India, but if you have plans to grow, this is the market. And we all should feel proud, not just of the nation, but the leaders that we have in this room who are building up this industry. So I certainly believe that right now is just the start of this great time that we have in our country. and we should go behind it. So with that, I'll end my session. I'd love to welcome any questions. Me and Ankesh are here. And as the World Gold Council, if there's any research, if there's any ideations, we have almost about $10 million kept aside for ideations. The construct is, if you have an idea that can transform something, I'm talking about gold in general, but can be transformative, technology-led, we are happy to fund. If there is, is there is research that you think needs to be done for a consumer in Brazil, to consumer in Uttar Pradesh, to consumer in Chennai or Bombay, we are ready to fund those things. So please come talk, make the best usage of us. And please register yourself with IAGs, which is really the way that we should. Because if, think about it, in 10 years' time, our focus is not to say that who's a bad player and who's a good player. The intention is that what's correct. And certain companies that have formed a code of conduct, there's no child labor, they're paying the right wages, they're following the rules of law and all of that, they have to be recognized. And I think more and more of us who do good business, if we form a part of IHS, automatically the non-good players will diminish, the consumer will get moved, and what will happen is that the confidence of a consumer into our industry is only going to go up, and those steps are required. So with that, I thank you all, and thanks, sir, for giving me the opportunity to be here and to address the audience. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer. Great, otherwise we're here. We can always have a chat. Huh? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
May I please welcome Navalji Agarwal onto the stage and Rajiv G. Jain onto the stage and Mr. Sachin Jain onto the stage for a small token of appreciation. Soul to define the future of luxury. To guide this conversation, we have voices that work across design, craft, jewelry, and digital culture, each engaging with Jaipur not as nostalgia but as a living, evolving influence. The session will be moderated by Mr. Gunjan Jain, founder and editor of Business of Jewellery, an industry voice known for shaping thoughtful, future-facing conversations across the global jewellery and luxury landscape. I welcome Gunjan onto the stage. Let me have the privilege of introducing the first panelist to you, Mr. Ayush Kaslewal from Anantaya and AFKD. A contemporary design entrepreneur deeply rooted in Indian craft, Ayush works at the intersection of heritage, sustainability, and modern luxury, bringing Jaipur's artisanal legacy into a global design vocabulary. Can we please have it for Mr. Ayush Kasliwal? Mr. Abhishek Haritwal from Symmetry. With a practice grounded in ethical sourcing and refined craftsmanship, Abhishek represents a new generation of jewelry thinking where Jaipur's design sensibility meets global responsibility. Sonal Savan Sukha from Jewel Saga, a jewelry storyteller and entrepreneur. Sonal has been instrumental in translating Jaipur's gem and design heritage for a modern, digitally fluent luxury audience. Janvi Kanwat from Jayashree Kanwat label Jaipur. Rooted in handcraft and textile tradition, Janvi's work reinterprets Jaipur's artisanal language through contemporary silhouettes, bridging emotion, technique, and modern femininity. Last but not least, Ramanshi Narula from Bougainvillea and Barney, a digital creator and tastemaker. Ramanshi curates a visual world inspired by color, travel, and slow luxury, showing how Jaipur's aesthetic continues to resonate with a global, culturally curious audience. Over to you, Gunjan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here, and thank you all the panelists to be here on this notice and be here at the JJS and JJDF platform. So Jaipur has always been described through craft, color, and jewelry. What's changed is how confidently it influences now travels across the global luxury market. And we have been shown that all across the globe, the designers are looking towards Jaipur for various kind of inspirations. You know, it could be our monuments, it could be our stones, color, clothing, whatever. When you think of Jaipur today, what is one emotional or visual quality that feels most transferable to a global luxury audience? So this is an open question to any of you. Whoever wants to start it could begin it.
Hello. So I think one thing unique about Jaipur is it is modern without losing a sense of its roots. It's got authenticity and timelessness and a contemporaneousness about it, which I think is, at least for most of the world, it's a very unique position for us to be in. It's India for the world.
I would request everybody could say a line on it so that.
So, Gunjan, I honestly feel that the first key word that comes to our mind is the architecture. And as far as jewelry, because this is a jewelry forum, as far as jewelry is concerned, all of us between the trade and the media, we always speak of designs getting inspired from Jaipur's architecture, showrooms getting inspired from Jaipur's architecture. Like few of us brands who have a presence outside Jaipur, maybe 5-6 of jewelry companies, you will see that their stores in Delhi look like Jaipur. And since I'm in Delhi for 15 years now, we see that customers come and they used to relate to it. देखो यार ये तो जयपुर जैसा architecture है, वो mehrab and gumbad and all that. So I think the architecture, like you in the whole mascot of JJDF, the highlight is the architecture. So I believe the architecture is a punchline for brand Jaipur, as we call it.
For me, I think it's the feeling that everything is done by hand and like with love, that a lot of global brands also want to see now. And you can see earlier, like there was so much of digital print and everything, but even big fashion houses now, like Dior, they are hiring artisans from India, promoting them, and they want to see the raw block print that's in Jaipur and also the embroidery. So for me, I think it's the feeling of doing everything by hand and with love.
I think everyone has pointed out things already, but I really like what Abhishek said. For me, Jaipur, the way it translates to global audience, as you said, it's in the form of visual imagery. Everything here mentioned is an imagery, right? The jharokas, the motifs, the very specific gerua color also. So, you see something, and if you're able to say, oh, this is like Jaipur, this reminds me of Jaipur, it's a job well done. So it's imagery for me that speaks Jaipur and translates it.
So Ayush, if I ask you, how do materials native to Jaipur, like stone, metal, textile, carry emotional memory into contemporary spaces?
It's not just the material, but how it's articulated.
Yes.
And there is something which is very distinctly Indian about how materials are used. They're not used wastefully. They're used very sparingly, but very, very nicely. And a lot of effort is put into doing it, into how junctions come together, how one material talks to the other. So I think there's a materiality, particularly in the case of Jaipur. So if you go to a house in the old city, see the chitaknis, see the hinges, these small, small things. And, those things done well really invoke a lot of memory, because all of us would have grown up touching and holding beautiful things, because at one point in time, that was the only way to do it, to do things beautifully. There was no other way to not do things. So I think the memory of things done beautifully is something that all of us long for and seek. Very difficult to find in this day and date, but I think that's one strong emotion that we have of beautiful things.
Sonal, we missed you in the last one, so.
Yeah, so for me, I think Jaipur, I feel, is not chasing perfection. It's not chasing flawlessness, but it's rather based on emotions. How we all love the ecosystem that we built for each other, where we all love to grow with each other. We are proud to be associated with each other, and we all love to grow each other. So I feel for me, Jaipur is emotion, it's feeling.
So it's more about connectivity among the people.
Absolutely.
So Ms. Narula, tell me, when audience respond to your Jaipur-led content, what is really they're responding to? Is it the visual feeling behind them, or it's what you write, or?
I think the response is layered and not very segregated and I'm audible now?
Yeah.
I think the response is layered. The visuals are the entry point, right? You engage with the visuals first, you see it first, and then comes the emotional layer, the emotional context. So to give you an example, when somebody sees something that I've posted about Jaipur, they say, this reminds me of home. And their address might not be in Jaipur anymore. But then I think, what is it specifically about this picture that reminds them of home? Why doesn't a random picture of Hawa Mahal or a drone shot of MI Road not do it for them? It's the philosophical lens of personal storytelling that I add to it, right? It's not a stock image. It's not for the masses. It's coming with my anecdotal experiences, my childhood memories, my preferences as a local. So in short, I'd say the response is led.
So Janvi, you are in the fashion industry, and what Jaipur-inspired fashion look like when it's on the global runways?
It's not the obvious silhouettes that you see on the runway. It's like, again, it's very layered. You'll see a little bit of pop of color. And then when you see the colors in Jaipur, they are very, very bold, but at the same time, they are so subtle because they feel like they have been worn on. And then the layers of embroidery that you see, that's what global houses are seeing right now. It's not the obvious silhouettes, and they make their outfits in a way that actually the emphasis is on the prints and not just on the silhouette. That's what these people are trying to do now, is what I've seen in most of the fashion houses. Even right now, there's this brand called Bhipu Mohapatra. He's an Indian, but he's from New York. So if you see his designs, his silhouettes are very, very modern, and he would also add a little bit of gemstones and stuff. But what he's really trying to focus is to bring prints and zardozi and all that on the runway and put it out there in front of the world.
Abhishek, when it comes to jewelry, what kind of elements of Jaipur jewelry would you take when you go globally in markets outside Jaipur, outside India? And which are the ones you would leave it behind?
So I'll give you an example what I think of this point. Bulgari's rep Lucia, she's all over the place. Instagram is full of seeing her pictures loaded in an auto rickshaw at the Lassi Wala. And if we study, I'll answer this question through the West. If we study what all has Jaipur taken from here, we did a show in Victoria and Albert and we called it The Parisian Summer. It was a 120-page, media wrote a lot about it. It was a 120-page summary that I wrote on what the Westerners took from Jaipur. The tutti frutti necklace or the carvings. So, and now with Bulgari and Cartier's presence in Jaipur, I believe they are singling out the same patterns where it all started. If you look at Maharaja Patiala's Parur, you would know that it started there. So this is a brilliantly answered theory that they are choosing to, the West is choosing to take back what they originally took from Jaipur in terms of colors, in terms of carvings, and we are all able to sell such products in the West, starting Middle East. I mean, of course, uncuts, I would have loved to take uncuts outside India. But even Dubai doesn't accept polkis. So, which is a very unfortunate part because we are all known for uncuts. But having said that, it's a very well-defined line now with the Westerners who are sitting and buying in Jaipur. It's a very well-classified thought of design, I would say.
In fact, Bulgari now is using Jaipur as their marketing tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All over the world, they are saying
All
it's
over the
Jaipur.
world.
Sonal, you have been in the enamel jewelry from a long time. And what design decisions are required when you make an enamel jewelry which would go to the global lifestyle?
So earlier, when I started working with enamel, my jewelry used to be very ornamental. It used to be rich. It used to be 80 to 90% of enamel and less of gold and diamonds showing along. But with the changes in the global lifestyle, now we work on designs where this craft quietly sits in. So the complexity of the technique doesn't necessarily has to be on the face of it, but it has to feel luxurious. Yes. So because of the change in the global lifestyles and the way we've started changing, I started asking myself this very simple question, like a very honest question. Would this jewelry or a design would be something which I'd like to wear for my girls' party, or say like for a dinner, lunches, or just to the airport?
The first trial is on yourself.
Of course, it has to be. So once you start asking those questions, the lens starts becoming clearer. So the decision making also starts getting clearer. So hence, then we started coming out with collections which were more resonant to the lifestyles of today.
Ayush, I believe you could answer this. Do you see maximalism as a design discipline is returning, or is it more emotional, thoughtful form of richness?
See, the isms are actually an imposed of thought. So maximalism means something different to to different people. I don't think that as a trend is here to stay. When you throw a lot of things and expect it to work together. But people surrounding themselves with things that remind them of something or invoke a certain emotion, that is, I think it's a very Indian tendency as well to have things that are beautiful or memorable or something you would like to, that takes you to a different place in your mind. So I think there's a big difference between the ism and the being of the same, visual.
Janvi, tell me, what does Jaipur color palette gives to you what any other place cannot? Why it can't be Delhi, Bombay, or...
Like I said earlier also, like Jaipur does have a lot of gold colors, but at the same time, they feel so worn out. And there's like a very rustic effect to all the colors that you see in Jaipur. And it's also because of the techniques that we use. We use natural colors and we don't promote a lot of synthetic colors. And when you see the architecture also, the pink city in pink, people assume it's going to be like bright pink, but when you actually see it, it's that worn out pink, and it, in some way, it feels so soothing. So I think you can't see that anywhere else. It's just Jaipur.
Very much. Very much. Abhishek, I'm coming back to jewelry now. Working with a global consumer, what contemporary standards does Jaipur Jewellery have to meet today? What are we lacking? I mean, I'll put it more clear. We are doing whatever we are doing best. But I also traveled the world. We have seen the best globally. Where is the space? What are we actually lacking in our productions or our designs when we are targeting a global consumer?
So I have a very mixed thought on this. I mean, I started this business about 16, 18 years back, and put up a factory on the third year of my business, getting into business. And I work with a few international brands who don't work with others in the jewelry sector. They were brands which are apparel or design oriented. What I see is the pluses I'll talk of first, that with Sitapura Zone 1, 2, 3, and etc., we have seen a huge inflow of international brands getting their white labeling done here, which maybe 15 years back, Gunjan, we could not have thought of. Such names coming to Jaipur, not taking Vietnam and China in consideration. So, of course, the CDEX and the RJC compliances of the world have gone in our favor. But what I also debate is that the only zone we all compare ourselves is with Bombay. If you look at Bombay in their roaring period, the early 2000s, the whole difference is of professionalism. I mean, I think we still are coming out of that Jarau mode, which was uncalculated and which was uncontrolled. And this Jarau mode is now giving away to the Western jewelry. So the whole point here is that with the infrastructure that we have is tremendous, but the professionalism for Jaipur to become a Guangzhou or a Bombay, the professionalism is something that I would miss a little on this forum.
So would you say that is the hardest compromise or a difficult part which you really want to work on when you're targeting
I would say so.
consumer?
I would say so. When I work closely with the RJC in UK, what I see is that so many Jaipur companies are RJC compliant, Responsible Jewelry Council, so or CDEX for that matter. So professionally or infrastructurally, we are up there. But to get it out in terms of trade practices, in terms of employer-employee relationships, etc., I think that's a big chain on the foot.
What would you suggest? What should we do?
I mean, most of us companies, there's no, like, I'll give you an example. We often talk in our YPO meetings that there's not one company in Jaipur, in jewelry sector, there are maybe 2 listed companies, first of all, out of which there's hardly a company which is using an HR consultant like a global standard. We don't have Bain, or we don't have the McKinseys of the world, or the Bostons of the world, trying to tell somebody that how are you managing yourself, what's your growth journey. वो जो infrastructure की समझ है, that is absent.
Jaipur has everything to offer. The only thing we need to change is our perception. We need to look towards the global markets. We need to adapt ourselves, educate our team. That is one thing which is very important. And that is what will change the product as well. So, Anvi, I have a question for you. What happens in the clothing industry? What changes when Jaipur-inspired clothing is designed to be worn outside India?
I think it's the cuts that need to be changed. What like when I was in London and when I told people in my class that I'm from Jaipur, so they used to have this thought, oh, people wear like lehengas over there and, that traditional Indian attire. And that's the assumption most of the people had when I was there in my first year. But then when I also did my projects, I did a lot of designing where I took inspiration from Jaipur, from the architecture, jewelry, and also obviously the different textiles that we use here. Then they were like, okay, that Jaipur has a lot more to offer than just those lehengas and the mirror work and, the bright colors. So it has to be like you have to use those techniques in a way that, the silhouette is a bit modern, or it could be slightly modern, a little Indo-Western, that people would like to wear it there. But the way that you do the embroidery could be inspired by Jaipur, and then you put it on the garment like that. That's what.
Nice. Sonal, so Jaipur's traditional enamel jewelry, if you want to make it for a global consumer, what would you change? Then something you said, okay, you try yourself, but that would be more for the Indian consumers. But if there is a product which you want to sell to a client in New York or Europe or any other part of the world, how different would that be than your regular stuff? How your design would be global?
So, like I said, the craft has to be evident. So, the craft for us, Meenakari enamel, what you call, is done in various ways. We do painting enamel, we do Jaipur Meenakari, we do plicature, we do cloison enamel. So, there are multiple ways of doing enamel that we try. And like I said before, the craft doesn't have to shout, it has to sit in quietly there. The product has to feel luxurious. Product has to be edgy, modern. I'm trying to focus on ethno-contemporary product, which is at par with the designs in the world, which a lady sitting in New York or anywhere, any part of the world will be able to carry. So that's what the intention is about.
I'll come back to you, Ms. Narula. How has digital storytelling helped Jaipur reclaim its narrative beyond glitches?
We need to understand what has digital storytelling done in general to be able to understand how Jaipur has reclaimed. I would say if Jaipur has reclaimed that space or not. I would say in the post-pandemic era that we are in right now, digital storytelling has seen a shift from more, simple P2C videos where you're sitting in front of a white wainscoted wall. It's become more raw, more everyday rooted, more cinematic, which has brought a lot of personal stories to the forefront. So once people start talking about their personal lives, their anecdotes, their childhood, Jaipur was quietly sitting in the corner in the digital realm, waiting to be noticed. And in time, it got its due recognition, right? Outside of the digital world, Jaipur already is a cultural epicenter, right? But in the digital world, once more raw and real stories started coming out, Jaipur, rightfully took its spot. So I think digital storytelling in the post-pandemic era helped Jaipur get noticed for what it deserves instead of, I would say, reclaim it, because Jaipur always had that spot for me, personally speaking.
How important is jewelry on your handle? How much do you talk about that?
I think jewelry is the way I express myself, even more than clothes. Because as a woman who struggles with a lot of health issues, there might be a day where clothes not fit you, but your jewelry always will.
That's well said. And that's all of us want over here, that all you influencers should promote jewelry more.
Right. And, one day my granddaughter can have it. If she doesn't like it, maybe they could change it to a bracelet and my grandson can have it. Clothes can't offer that for me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Abhishek, Jaipur jewelry is historically bold. How do you introduce restraint without diluting the identity?
Can you repeat that?
Jaipur jewelry is historically bold. How do you introduce restraint without diluting the identity?
So, what context would this question be
So
like?
it would be more like, you have to still keep that identity of the product and still it has to be usable.
So, if you
As
look
you
at
said, our Jadao necklace, your bridal piece, what you make, if somebody, a woman is wearing under a burqa in Bahrain, won't work. So what could be different, what you could do?
I mean, if we talk about the heritage jewels of Jaipur, finding a space in contemporary, the one example that comes to my mind is the Doha Islamic Museum of Art. ये बात और है कि वो इसको इस्लाम से रिलेट करके and they're taking it to a different tangent. But all the pieces, all the key important pieces in that museum, I've worked for them, so I know it, have been sourced from Jaipur. And they are now finding a key line in the design language of the Middle East. And it proudly sits there under the name of the Doha Islamic Museum. The point is that we still are taking a Meena piece, embedding it with pave and yellow diamonds. We see the lady wearing one here with that concept line. She has taken a Jaipur motif and made it a very, very international frame around it. So I think the lotus as a heritage is a Jaipur motif, predominantly in all design houses, lastly being graph this year. अब हम उसको बोलें कि lotus is a very is a symbol which we own as Sanatani Indians, right? But so I see that heritage of Jaipur in terms of jewels, वो टुकड़े सारे in Western world में under different names of settings all over the brand. So it's a point to be. If we sit down and we try to make a summary out of 15 top brands this year in 2025, and I bet you all here, आप अगर motifs की list निकालेंगे तो 50% of them are Jaipur inspired.
Wow, that's a big number. So Ayush, I was studying your Instagram a few days back and I saw some beautiful lights. I think you recently made some restaurant or designed it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those were somewhere inspired with some monuments or architectural figures. How does that work with the international markets? Do you change them a bit to the global design, or that is your aesthetic, what people use, which resonate to Jaipur?
We often look at the international market as one big gray. It is very nuanced. Within the markets, there are people who have certain likings, certain things, and when it comes to storytelling, that's really what we respond to. What is the story? What is the narrative? Our work in spaces is very narrative driven. So it is what the story needs to be that we would work with. Now, this said, we also do a lot of very contemporary products, lighting, furniture, etc., which sit in some of the best, global furniture places around the world. So, there's one thing I'd like to just sort of add on to a question that you'd asked about what holds us back, what do we take to the world? And I think the ability to edit is perhaps the biggest missing that we have, including me. Because all of us have got so many things that we can do and so many things that we end up doing, the ability to stand back and say yes and no is something that many of us struggle with. So we are spoiled. So very often I talk about ourselves as, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. When you can do everything, what do you not do? So I think in the context of the global market, it is what you do for that particular event and the ability to edit and narrow down to what is most appropriate there is really what we're able to take to the world and be the storytellers as and when needed.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for all of you now. What does Jaipur do instinctively that other luxury centers are still trying to learn? Maybe you all could answer it one by one. What does Jaipur do instinctively what other luxury centers are still trying to learn it?
I think instinctively, Jaipur celebrates human presence, human hands, We celebrate the hospitality, how we welcome, our adaptability. So instinctively, Jaipur is all about our own people. And that's the narrative, that's the storytelling we are best at.
Sonal, we know you are a great host, and that's why it comes from there.
That's also true. So instinctively, I feel Jaipur is all about emotion and the feeling. And the luxury, other luxury sectors that you mentioned about, I think they're trying to chase, again, maybe flawlessness, but Jaipur is not chasing that. Jaipur is chasing the feeling and the emotion. That's what I feel.
Correct.
I think Jaipur effortlessly is authentic. हम तो ऐसे ही हैं जी. We are what we are, and we are proud and happy of it, and we will celebrate that. And that we can see in our clothes, in our food, in our homes, in how we live, in our jewelry. There's this sort of very rare, exuberant authenticity about celebrating who we are. And I think not many places in the world have that. You'd see the exact opposite in, say, a place like China, which erases every possible presence of identity in whatever they do. So I think this is one of those rare things that our city has, and that's to a large part because of who we are and how we support each other and we amplify. हमको बूंदी के लड्डू चाहिए तो यहाँ पे ही मिलेंगे, and we take those बूंदी के लड्डूs, we take them to the world because we are proud of it. So I think that's really a Jaipur that is actually ready for the world.
Nice.
Like
Well,
to
well
add,
said.
this is the ecosystem that we built for all of us, how our seniors have built for us. That's the reason we are all here. So I think that's what Jaipur thrives on.
Guys, you can clap if you found something interesting. please. Before Abhishek, you start, I would like to add on here. Jaipur also has that the men in Jaipur like to dress. After Italy, I've only seen men in Jaipur who really like to dress. You see Abhishek, you see yourself. So that's one thing what Jaipur definitely offers.
So I would have started with that. I tell my Bombay and Calcutta friends and cousins that यही एक जगह है जहाँ तुम बंद गला और हीरे के बटन में ऑफिस जा सकते हो. So 100% you see the number of designers who have come out of Jaipur in the last 10 years and look at their positioning in India.
Right.
We see Kamra, we see Weber, so many of them, and they are at par with the Raghavendra Rathors of the world. In fact, Raghavendra ka statement hai ki Jaipur is coming up like a golden lotus.
In fact, when we talk about jewelry, luxury jewelry or designer jewelry, it's only Jaipur in India. If you see, means how many luxury designer jewelry manufacturers are there in Bombay or Surat or Hyderabad? It's mainly Jaipur which is coming with design.
Please see the ratio in IHS of Jaipur designers versus Bombay design houses. It's maybe
80-20.
Yeah, 80-20. So speaks it all. Second, to the point that you asked, Jaipur doesn't have to look like Jaipur to become Jaipur. Bombay has to look like Jaipur to become fancy because they don't have a history. There's a little interesting thing. In 2008, EO was made here as one of the founders. I went to Maharaja Bhavani Singh Ji to invite him for one of the founding events. Uska natija ye hua ki we sat and we discussed on all several subjects, knowing Hukam's interest in various things of life. The name of my brand, Symmetry, was given by Maharaja Bhavani Singh. Symmetry of Jaipur. कि जय सिंह जी ने कैसे बनाया और कितने पोल बनाई and brilliant. Come back to 2018, Johari's बना यहाँ पर.
Right.
Now, what you say कि भाई हम तो ऐसे ही हैं जी. That is a very, very big punchline. It's not a joke that he made. I would say that is the bottom line. Jaipur wale, Emerald fraternity, anywhere in the world, they get up. It's not a culture of getting up from deals, right? नहीं जी नहीं हो पाएगा. So that हम तो ऐसे हैं जी is a huge punchline. Look at Johari's. So many hotels have been inspired by Johari's. When they get a guest who is a private jetter, उसको लेके जाते हैं वहां से वॉक कराते हुए, तो they talk about the cow dung. कि देखिए जी आप क्या मतलब हमारी यहाँ पे वो है कि यहाँ मटर वाला भी है, यहाँ सब्जियां बिक रही है, वो टिकिया बना रहा है. So we are totally romanticizing the downside, Ayush, right? We are romanticizing the downside, and that's why it is brand Jaipur.
Oh, well said. I agree too. So, thank you.
I think for me, Jaipur naturally has a story behind everything that we do. And we actually promote our artisans so much. Global brands are trying to make stories, they're trying to find content all over the world, but we don't have to go anywhere. We just have it here in Jaipur.
I think what Jaipur does differently and instinctively is that there is a lot of cultural continuity. If you take, for example, there are a lot of other luxury centers and houses, they are trying to manufacture that luxury. But in Jaipur, it exists in the everyday. As he very rightly said, there is a vegetable vendor, there is the bangle makers in the Maniaro Karasa. Everything is continuing as is, as it has for the 100 years. There are a lot of family led businesses and initiatives. The same shop, the same shutters open each day. So when you're living that reality, it's no longer a performative luxury, right? It's your lived reality, which is why it feels so different, which is why it comes across as so original and instinctive. So which is why other luxury centers cannot perhaps mimic it. That's what
All
I
right,
feel.
very much.
There's just one thing I'd like to add
Sure.
to whatever. You know, just the way that we take it for granted is also something that might be its downfall. Because many things that we did, we took for granted, the tailor around the corner, the cobbler, we took them so much for granted that we did not support and foster them. So I think this is also a call for all of us to not take anything around us for granted. We have to actively go out to that mithai wala. We actively have to go to that particular place to get what we get. We have to make what pan we want. It is not something that happens on its own. It's all of us deliberately doing what has always been done in the way that it needs to be done. Patronize them. So I think we are at that very fragile point where taking ourselves and Jaipur for granted will not take it to the future. So I think this is a call for all of us to see what we have around us and treasure it, value it, and make sure that it moves ahead along
We
with the
need
rest
to
of the world.
safeguard it, basically. So I think it's very clear that Jaipur relevance isn't about revival or nostalgia. It is more about the people, more about the passion, what the warmth we carry, the design language we speak, and the respect what we have to our elders, to our city, and that is what Jaipur is. And hum to aise hi hain, adapt us, accept us, that is how we are, right? I think I would end the session over here. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for being a part. And thank you, Jaipur Jewellery Show. Rajiv Uncle, Mehul ji is here to give us this opportunity. Naval ji is here. Thank you. Anybody has any question? Sure.
Jaipur is a Jaipur is a luxury brand by itself.
So, I mean, it's not a question, but I've seen all of your great works and many more people here from my industry, from carpets, Jaipur rugs. Yogesh is again doing a great job. I mean, now it's high time when you guys start labeling your products as made in Jaipur. Of course, we are all made in India, but that made in Jaipur brand has to now, it's almost time that we are there. And all of you, if you guys start doing it, I think in 10 years' time, made in Jaipur will have a unique value.
I just want to add what the very eminent panel has said. Jaipur has the authenticity. दुनिया में हम कहीं भी जाते हैं तो जयपुर के नाम से सब समझते हैं कि इनकी बात में वजन है, गलत नहीं बोलेंगे. अगर ये कह रहे हैं कि इसकी ये प्योरिटी है और इसके अंदर ये चीज है तो सही होगी. सेकंड इज एक्सपोजर. हम लोगों का, हमारा ये जो फोर फादर्स हैं, उन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की है. दे हैव ट्रेवल्ड थ्रू आउट द वर्ल्ड. जब साधन नहीं थे जाने के, प्लेन्स नहीं थे, तब भी उन्होंने रिमोट एरियाज में जा जाके कहाँ पे एमरल्ड की माइंस हैं और कहाँ से एमरल्ड लाना और कैसे यहाँ लाना है. थर्ड इज द रॉयलिटी. शुरू से ही रॉयल फैमिलीज का इन्फ्लुएंस जयपुर पे रहा है और उन्होंने इतने सारे लोगों को यहाँ पे जो इतने आर्टिजन्स को यहाँ पे लाके और जो एक इसके बेस बनाया, दैट बिकेम आवर लेगेसी. और वो लेगेसी जो है आज हमारे को फ्रूट कर रही हैं, हमारे को फल पल्लवित फ्रूट दे रही हैं. तो मैं समझता हूँ ये सारी चीजें, इतनी बातें जो कहीं वो तो अच्छी हैं ही, पर अब जो नई जनरेशन आ रही हैं, दे आर कीपिंग दैट अप, और उसकी वजह से जयपुर एकदम शाइन होके एक वर्ल्ड मैप पे आ रहा है. थैंक यू.
Hello. Any more questions? That was a lovely session. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure all of you thoroughly enjoyed it as well. I now call upon Navalji and Rajivji onto the stage to, gift all our lovely panelists today with a token of appreciation.